We've never used that word before in Centro. We keep saying CMOS, CMOS, CMOS because that's what everybody says. Especially in Texas, the terminology is CMOS. But thinking about diversity of epistemologies and recognize the diversity of thought and languages, we thought it was important to change that. And it's something to say el centro, right? El centro means a lot of things, especially in Spanish, right? But el centro is usually something very community-based in our communities. And so that's why we started looking at this name. This is the first time we talked about it. And then we wanted to look at this as something that was always reciprocal, right? There were not separate entities. This was all something that was all completely interconnected. And in fact, we couldn't figure out where to put half of these things because they fit into a lot of things. So the first thing that we have is the traditional idea of an academic program. So El Centro would house this academic program. And the academic program would look much like it does right now on paper, but it would really be about critical interventions, right? So what we are teaching here is this. And they're all based on critical interventions. So everybody throughout here came up with an ideal class that they would like to teach, but it had to be a critical intervention that was directly tied to student engagement and retention. And so our academic programs would be about that. And our academic programs, as Jessica said, is we're not just going to think about ideas and theories. These are going to be things that we can apply. So thinking about like the work that Marcos has done at San Jose State is really, we're talking about applied Chicano studies here, right? It's not enough to leave this on the paper. We need to have action plans. And it's not enough to have an action plan. We need to create the space in our courses to execute those action plans, because our student population does not have the luxury of doing free unpaid internships in the summer, nor do we have the infrastructure in the university to create those opportunities for them. So we're going to do that for them in our classrooms. And we're going to do that because we've built all this amazing community partnerships already through our students, right? So it's going to be really hard work, but once we get it going, we're going to just keep on moving and moving and moving all around. So related to that is an idea that Más El Centro is also about student support. So in our classrooms, we're creating student support through ideas, for example, like mentoring. And Marcos yesterday mentioned a mentoring program where graduate students are in the undergraduate class serving as mentors. And they have office hours, and students are coming in and talking to other students about it. And we want to create a graduate studies pipeline, right? And we've already started doing this, right? Our only two graduates, they're in graduate programs. And our graduate certificate students, we had 9 last year, 4 of them are in PhD programs. And we have 3 here, and they're applying to PhD programs. So we want to create this pipeline, right? But the one way of doing this, and the other thing, and I know this is something Cynthia has been talking to me a lot about. I don't want to like not mess up your color scheme, Stephanie. Is we want to have domestic exchanges. Okay, we want to have domestic exchanges, and we're looking specifically right now at Michigan State University and their Chicano Studies program, and Hunter College with the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. And we want that their students can come here, our students can go there. Because one thing we think is lacking is that we need to sort of increase the students' ideas of the Latino experience, not just the Mexican American experience, but connecting that to a broader Latino experience, but then exposing those places to what's going on down here and all the amazing work we do, right? And so those are tier 1 institutions, and we have this collaboration already totally possible through our own connections of what we know. And so we want to start doing these domestic exchanges, which really can be almost free, right? If we establish it the way you do international. They pay tuition there, but they take class here. They pay tuition here, and they take class there. And then that is all related to community engagement, right? So we want to take this service learning, student experiential, to the community, which we've already been talking about. But we want to take everything that we do, and we're going to take it to the community for public pláticas. And this could be part of the academic program, right? So these action plans, these are vetted to the community so before anything happens, to say, hey, that doesn't work here, right? Tú no puedes hacer eso aquí because of whatever, right? So we want to take this to the community and open up forums. And not only that, but create a space on campus for the community to come and hold those forums, right? And then we move, here is research, right? Which we've already talked a lot about. We have the Rio Bravo journal that we've already gotten permission from the editors. We're changing editors. We're moving into an online format to reduce the costs of paper production. We already have the first issue ready, and their second issue really is basically going to be about all of the work that we've been doing here. And we want to build relationships with graduate programs, right? So, and this is related to the domestic exchanges, but it's on a separate note. Those graduate programs, we want to create pipelines for those graduate students to come here and do postdocs here at UTPA. And that's actually something that's in the center proposal, right? Is that we want visiting scholars, right? And a postdoc, right? So that people start looking at us as a research institution. There's a lot of work, really great work being done out there in Latino studies and Chicano studies, and we're not bringing them to campus, right? And we should be bringing them to campus, because honestly, the work could be done here instead of going to Austin or Houston, they need to be down here in the Valley. And then, we have this notion right here that this research will be sort of like an institute for critical pedagogies. And this Institute for Critical Pedagogies is about MAS, right? And creating the body of literature that everybody in like 20, 30 years is going to need, because there's going to be a lot of 90% Latino institutions out there. And where are they going to look? I don't want them to be looking at Michigan State or Notre Dame or out in California. We're in the place that they're going to be, and we need to be pushing the narrative forward, and we need to be the ones who are intervening now, not waiting another 30 years, right? Because we're 30 years behind in Mexican American studies. We need to catch up, and we need to catch up fast. And so the way that we looked at this is all through the idea of a diversity of community-based conocimientos. We can use that word epistemologies, but we look at it as conocimientos, okay? Now, the centro, we envision it as something that is not connected to any one college, right? Because if we're talking about transdisciplinary studies, then we get caught up in, well, but it's in that college. And well, I'm in like this college, so I really can't do it over there. And even if people say you can, as at least people of color, we have this burden on our back that someone's looking over our shoulder, like, no. And like keeping a checklist on us, right? I mean, I know everyone feels this way. Because even in other institutions we were talking in, and just going through our own dissertation experiences and writing about Latinos was an issue, right? So we envision this as something that's not part of any one college, and it's the center of the university. It is el centro de la universidad, right? And we don't know exactly what that means, but it means that everybody's welcome, and people can come, and people can be a part of this and still be a part of their own college culture and department culture. But we have this space where these ideas are cultivated and nurtured, where in departments they're not. Even if I say that's happening, those departments are, the majority are faculty that are not of color. They think that they embrace these ideas, but then when it comes down to it, they don't, because we've seen this in the hiring practices that are happening, right? So we need this to not only be a welcoming place for faculty members, but we need it to be a place that we can exert pressure on other departments and other colleges to be diversifying their ways of doing things and their hiring practices and their courses in their own particular little enclaves, right? So, you know, when we have a hire in psychology, someone from MAS is on that. I mean, if we believe that this is the university's mission, if the university's mission is to really be a mechanism of positive change in the Valley, then you have to start somewhere, right? And Mexican American Studies is the one that is centered and ready to move on this in a way that no other department can. And you know, what we were talking about is, you know, this becomes the model for all the other departments on campus, right? So that eventually the political science department is a political it's the Latino politics department, right? And they are the best in the country in Latino politics. And the psychology department is a Latino psychology department, et cetera, right? So we are the experts in this field because we have to be, because if we don't, our community is going to continue to suffer. And so the idea is maybe 30 years from now, this doesn't even exist because the whole university is Mexican American studies, right? I mean, because we have to be. Because the lives of our students and their families depend upon it, you know? So, Francisco, am I missing something? Lisa? Stephanie?
Well, I think that the building relationships with the graduate programs, part of it is that it's with our graduate programs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a suggestion of assistantships for graduate students, or those sorts of things. We have some doctoral programs already. So if we can just tap the doctoral programs that we have to get editors, who are doctoral students for Rio Bravo or for other things. So I think the suggestion for building relationships with graduate programs does suggest pipeline issues, but also, and I think more importantly, looking at our own graduate programs within the institution. And then the other thing is that this is distinctly interdisciplinary. I think that it can't be anything else, right? I mean, outside of any department, but for all departments.
Yeah. And one thing that we talked about is, okay, so that we were trying to figure out is the funding for this, right? Because all this, supposedly the funding for all these departments is tied to SCHs and stuff, but we want to be the program that is not worried about SCHs. Like, we are happy to produce SCHs for everybody else, right? And then nobody hates us because we took away 50 SCHs last semester, right? No, we produced 60 something for you that you didn't have before. So that we're not concerned about this, right? We see the Centro as critical to the mission of the university. And it's sort of essentially a service department, like a lot of places, because the mission of the university cannot be accomplished without this, right? And so, the Centro is funded by the university, and special projects are funded by grants, right? But the central workings of El Centro is the heart of the university, right? And it says the message to the community. We're very serious about what we're doing, right? Because all of these ideas of, creating the best, this Latino psychology, that takes years. And in fact, this takes years. The great thing is we just did this all backwards. We have 60 plus faculty members who are engaged in Mexican American studies. It's taken programs out in California and other places 30 years to get that. So we have the major investment, which is the faculty lines. Now we just need the scaffolding, right, to plug it all in.
Stephanie, do you have some observations about this?
I don't know so much if I could comment about all of this, but what I can comment about is my time here in the Valley and my time as a graduate student in the MAS program. So as a Spanish major, I love the Spanish language. I love learning about the different types of ways to say things, but being a MAS graduate certificate, I was also able to take anthropology courses, and I've never been able to do that before. In the programs and everything that I've been taking, so that kind of afforded me the ability to be able to recognize that there was other things that I liked besides language, that there was culture, there was folklore, there's more than one way to look at things and more than one way to even examine language, something that I wouldn't have been able to see if I wasn't involved in the MAS program. So looking at things like this and putting it to action, making a plan, having a space for not just for all the other things that Dr. Alvarez mentioned, but just for students to be able to go and look at it and say, okay, well, this is my space. This is where I can be. This is a place for me, like as a Mexicano, Mexicana, Mexicoamericanos, like whatever they define themselves as, but a space where they can just not only hang out, but learn and engage and be a part of a community. And I think that that's something that's very necessary for UTPA, and I would love to come back, once I'm hopefully in my doctoral program and see that that's there and be a part of it and share with the other students. So.
Lisa, do you have some observations? Or should I even ask?
You can ask. I think when I first became engaged in talking about Moss and what it meant, I've said this to several people. I feel like I had to go away from the Valley. I grew up in the Valley, so I feel like I had to go away to really understand, the importance of my culture and the people here. And so if we can find a way to embed this into what the university does for the students of the university and the students of the Valley and beyond UTPA. I mean, engaging the community and the teachers and the little ones in how important and how rich and all of the everything that we bring are assets to and this shows it. I mean, this I haven't been as proactive in reading all of the literature and the pedagogy that crystallizes what you all have put up here, but I love the way this captures what it is that y'all are doing, and I think this is necessary, and how we build it. I mean, there's a lot more conversations that need to be had about how we operationalize it in the university.
I also think that this the Mexican American Studies program is a great recruitment and retention tool for faculty. There's so many people who are interested in studying this population, and they end up somewhere like Penn State, where it's difficult to collect data, and so it works out for me because I have some partners in other universities. But if you have such a population, it seems it's just odd that we don't have a center that enables us to study this population. And so I think, part of the reason why I wanted to come back to this area was that this was the population I was interested in studying. And so I think there are a lot of junior faculty members out there just like me, and I think that this center is a tool for recruiting them and then hopefully retaining them.
So I think we'd love to have the provost talk a little bit about his reactions, responses, how you're going to fund all this stuff.
Where's my check?
Sorry, I don't work here, so I can say that.
Right? Actually, when you mentioned funding, everybody sort of just moved. Well, Lisa has all the money, so you have to talk to her. First of all, I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm really happy to be here. I was here last year as well, more or less around this time, I suppose. I'm not sure if it was around this time, but it was, right? And I've also been a year here now at UT Pan American, and I think that there's been a lot of changes and important changes for the entire institution, with a new president over a 2-year period, a new provost, and a lot of activity within the Moss community, right? And it's first of all, it's very important to have all these faculty and all these students engaged in these processes, because we continuously refer to the institution and what the institution does and what the institution doesn't do, what the institution allows us to do and what the institution doesn't allow us to do. But we all forget that this ephemeris thing of institution really just exists in our minds, because we are all the institution. And I really mean that. And each and every one of you makes a difference in terms of how the institution moves forward or doesn't move forward. So when you say the institution, you are talking about yourself as well, because you are part of the institution. So the question is, how can we as a community that form part of this institution can work together to move the institution in the right direction, right? Now, I've had a conversation with the deans, and I've had a conversation with some of the deans, and I've had a conversation with Stephanie and Francisco and others of the MAS steering committee, and I've said, we need to move forward in this direction, but it's not moving forward in this direction. What I want to see as provost is that we build a national model. I know that UT Pan American has the faculty, has the resources, that we can build a very, very strong program that when people think about Mexican American studies, border studies, they say UT Pan American, right? They think automatically about UT Pan American across the country. And we have the resources and we have the people to do this. The question is, how do we do this? How do we bring people together in order to do this? And so we do need the support of the president. We do need the support of the provost, but we also need the support of the deans. We also need the support of department chairs, and we need the active engagement of the faculty. Now, that doesn't mean that all deans, all department chairs, and all faculty need to be actively engaged in this process, because they don't. We need critical masses of people who are interested, who are knowledgeable, and who are committed to move this forward, right? And I think we have that, right? So it's a question of how do we pull all this together and have a conversation so that we're working across colleges, as has already been mentioned. We're working across colleges. This is an interdisciplinary initiative. Just a few weeks ago, shortly before the holidays, I asked 4 deans of Social and Behavioral Sciences, College of Business Administration, College of Education, and College of Arts and Humanities. I want you 4 to come together and think about all these programs that we have across the institution. Mexican American Studies, Center for Bilingual Studies, Border Economics, potential master's degree in border studies. I said, we need to work together. And I'm not saying let's create one enterprise. I'm saying we need to work together. We need to be linked together. We need to be having these conversations so that we as a university, not as a particular group or a particular center or a particular unit, we as a university are moving together in that direction. So the deans have this challenge before them to have these conversations, have the conversation with the faculty, and then bring a proposal that we can have discussions about this. And and again, in conversations with the MAS steering group, I've also said the same thing, right? We need to have Mexican American Studies and the Center for Bilingual Studies and Border Economics. We need to be having these conversations so that we can move in the right direction. And again, not creating a program, but creating a national model. That's what we should do. That should be our goal. That should be our aim in how to move this forward. Mexican American Studies program went through a very critical phase this past year, as well a variety of other programs at UT Pan American and through the UT system, right? If you remember these quote unquote low producing programs identified by the coordinating board,